Hi, this is Robert Wilkins, aka Basketball Tall. Welcome to my channel. I'm glad that you're with me here today because I'm going to talk about something that may be of interest to you. Because it's something that we've all experienced, such as having a manager or a supervisor. Many of us may say a boss. But I want to clarify a little something. What's the difference between a boss and a leader when it comes to supervising or managing people? Before we get started, first of all, let me tell you that I was once a supervisor with an agency, a state agency in which I supervised 5 county agencies, which I had interactions with, those in law enforcement, all branches of law enforcement, including the district attorneys, as well as including state district judges. And so I'm going to share a little bit of my experience with you. And maybe somewhere on this journey, you may be looking at wanting to be a supervisor or a manager. And basically, we're talking guiding and governing people. So I'm going to share my experience with you, and maybe it can help you to become a better supervisor, or maybe even help you make the decision that you want to be a manager or supervisor. But before we get started, I was looking at some things here where it talks about a leader as far as someone in business is concerned, and talking about the differences between a leader and a boss. Think about that, being a boss. Have you ever had a micro manager, someone who dictate every little thing that you do, just like you have no freedoms? You can't think for yourself, or seem like everything that you do is always seen to be wrong. Or maybe you can go to that individual for some direction or have a question and don't get an answer. May tell you, look it up yourself. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, because by looking things up yourself, if you're governed by policy, that can be a good thing, because actually what it's doing is making you, the employee, better. Because if you're on a team where everyone knows what their duties and responsibilities are, that's a good thing. I like to have said many times that I probably was the dumbest of all those that I supervised. Okay. But then again, I possess something within me that they didn't have. So before I get into something, I'm going to take you on a journey with me. During my retirement with the state agency, the end of 2019, I had someone that got up that I supervised, one of my staff, and said in front of judges, lawyers, teachers, counselors, court clerks from several counties, you name it, and said some things that, well, she said this, that I was the best supervisor she ever had. And she's had several jobs, but I've had someone else tell me that too before I had to write that individual up and ultimately was dismissed. But I tried to be, because I've always remembered my mom telling me, treat people the way that you want to be treated. But in this journey of life, have I had some bad supervisors? Of course. Many of us have. And that's why you're watching this right now, because you may be trying to find a way. What could I do? Because of all this turmoil at work, with all this person just breathing down my neck, seeing like on everything I do, I can't do anything right. And then again, you may be looking at, do I want to be a manager? Do I want to supervise and manage these people? Sometimes it seems no matter how hard I work, how good a job I do, seems like it's never recognized, or we never get that promotion because that supervisor or manager doesn't like me. Have you ever felt that way? I have, multiple times. And I remember I had applied to be a supervisor 5 times. And the 4th time, I decided I wasn't going to even apply for the job. But as before, everyone kept telling me, now's your time. Go ahead, Robert, and apply for this. You were meant for this. You know policy, this and that and all of that. And I remember saying, yeah, you guys said that before, and I never got the job. But it's amazing how God works sometimes. Because as I reflect back on that, I look back when I did get the job, it was the perfect timing. The other years prior, as I look back and can see it clearly now, it wasn't my time. But I remember I waited till the almost near the deadline after I got encouraged several times by other co-workers to apply. Then one day I get a call from my supervisor wanting me to come to his office the next floor down. And when I went, he was offering me the job that I had applied for so many times and never got. Then all of a sudden now I'm getting a job and didn't even have to interview for it. In my mind, in all my experiences, that was never heard of because people always applied for these supervisory jobs. And this particular day, no one applied. But I do remember my supervisor telling me this. I didn't want you in the first place. The only reason you got this because those up at headquarters and state office decided to give you the opportunity. Isn't it amazing how God works? The times that you applied and you never got it. And then when you decided to apply, then your supervisor, who was really a micromanager, really, giving you the third degree in such a rude tone of voice that he did not want you for that job. And I remember this day, and I said, well, maybe it was God sent because no one else had applied. Think about that for a minute. And then the person who's over you telling you he didn't want you for the job in the first place, when he's calling you down to offering you the job. How ironic is that? And then he tells you those above him is how I got the job. Wow. But when he said that to me, that I didn't want you for a job in the first place, he was such a rude guy. And he had always been rude. He was such a micromanager. I remember the times when I used to go in and ask him questions about certain things which I was unsure of. And he would always say, what does policy say? When I supervised by policy. And actually, sometimes blessings comes in disguises and we can't see it because we're being groomed for something bigger and better. Because often I would go to him and ask him questions or his thoughts about a particular action, or maybe even an affidavit to lock somebody up. And he would say, what does policy say? I've always found him to be not a nice guy. And I knew I did not want to supervise my staff that way. And I didn't. And the times that he told me what did policy say, and I found myself not going to ask him anything anymore. I kept my distance from it because he let it be known how he felt about me. But all he did was just made me better unknowingly, because that's how I governed, by policy. And I was not a micromanager. In looking back and determining the differences as to a boss and a leader, and hearing what my staff said about me during my retirement, said that I was the greatest, the best boss she ever had. That was a warm feeling. And I couldn't help but just stare at that individual with such joy in saying such a thing, because that's how I tried to do it. I did not want to be like my supervisor. I wanted to be better in how I related to people and how I treated people. And more so, I was one of those kind of like PR, public relation type guys. That was me. Always got along with everybody, made a point to go visit people, public relations, whether it's the judges, the district attorneys, schools, teachers, whoever. That was me. And I just did what I always did. I guess with this stem coming from being a police officer, then became the district court juvenile officer, and before I became a juvenile justice specialist and supervisor of those last 25 years as a juvenile justice specialist. And I found myself during my staff meetings. And how often do you have staff meetings? Well, that depends on you, as often as you like. But I made a point to have staff meeting at least every other month. And at every staff meeting, about 99% of the time, I always handed out some form of policy because all they did made my staff much better. When I talked to my staff and doing coaching and other things, it was my point to treat them like they were people. They were important. They were special because they were. And when you're in the criminal justice field, that's good to know. Because I wanted to make certain when a person came to work, they wanted to be at work because it was more productive that way. And when they needed help and assistance, I'm going to be the one to be out there working with them. I'm going to be the leader because I saw this printout where it says, a boss says, go, but a leader says, let's go. Then look, I'm going to read this to you. It says here, a boss talks more, a leader listens more. A boss is self-absorbed. A leader leads by example. A boss says, me, me, me. A leader is a team player. A boss tells, a leader asks, but a leader also tells. But it's all in your approach, how you do it. A boss intimidates. A leader inspires. A boss dictates. A leader facilitates. It says right here, I just have something else I want to read to you. It talks about, you can see I've got it written out here, handout. It says a boss manages their employees while a leader inspires them to innovate, think creatively, and strive for perfection. A boss is an individual who is in charge of the employee or an organization. A leader is an individual who possesses the ability to influence and inspire others towards the accomplishments of goals. And as I reflect back as to my leadership skills, I led more so than being a boss because I knew how I felt when I went to the office and having a boss who was not, in my mind, a nice guy. And pretty much everyone in the office knew that as well. And many around the state knew it as well. But I felt that I got more done. People enjoyed coming to work. They wanted to be at work. They were more productive at work because I wasn't considered being hated. Isn't that a good feeling that you strive for something to be this supervisor, this manager that you tried so many times and never got? And then all of a sudden, a blessed door opens up for you. And then you discover that was the right time. The other times were not my time. But when this happened, when God opened up that door where I didn't even have to interview and gave me a job that went over my supervisor's head, boy. And that's what I hope for you. Be a leader. Yes, you manage people. Yes, you must make certain that the organization, the agency, your office is run properly according to company policy. But don't beat anyone over the head. You don't have to be mean to people. You don't have to be rude to people. You don't have to have people in fear of you. But you have people that want to jump that hurdle, to be able to go up to the mountaintop with you, to be able to walk through that fire with you and get the job done. That's how I see a boss compared to a leader. I highly encourage you, if you're thinking about supervising, if you're thinking about wanting to guide and be a leader among your staff, your peers, treat people the way that you want to be treated. Let people know that they are appreciated. Let people know that you're willing to help them, to lead them, to guide them. But also, most importantly, make certain that they understand what the rules, policy of the job is. Because if it comes down to a point when there has to be disciplinary action, they know they will be at fault. And this was my experience. For those that did violate policy or did not do accordingly what they know they should have done, they themselves have said to me, I was wrong. You were right. I'm wrong. I was wrong. And the thing is, I used to often always say, this what controls the situation. I don't have to scream at you. I don't have to be mean to you. But the write-ups, and you can be terminated just by this pen. But when everyone's governed by policy, and if they know they were out of line, they know. And everyone else in the office will know, because everyone in the office would know what policy says. That's, in my mind, the best way to govern, and not be mean about it. Let the pen rule.